Hi, and welcome to a discussion on my first experience with Super Metroid. Throughout my life, as someone who plays and talks about games with friends, I've heard the term Metroidvania a lot. It's a saying that sums up games with a likeness to Metroid and Castlevania, but I've played neither of these titles. And I figured that with having recently downloaded the Nintendo Entertainment System on my Switch, it was time to change that and experience a game that people have been talking about for more than 20 years. I feel like I need to start by saying that although I enjoy games, I am admittedly not very good at them. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy the challenge, and I've got to say that Super Metroid was certainly a challenge for me. I found myself having to look at a guide online for help on two occasions in particular. I'll bring up the sections where I needed the guide when I get to them. I feel like it goes without saying that there will be spoilers for Super Metroid during this discussion. If you want to play the game without spoilers, go give it a go and come back and watch the video. If you've already played the game, or you're just curious to hear my opinions, then stick around, and I might tempt you into experiencing a masterpiece from 20 years ago. So without further ado, let's get into Super Metroid. As the game opens, we hear a voice, telling us that something called a Metroid is in captivity, and due to this, the galaxy is at peace. As I said before, this is the first Metroid game I've ever played, but this short piece of text let me know that whatever a Metroid is, it's dangerous enough to unsettle a galaxy. As a first time player, I so appreciated the fact that there was really nothing for me to know getting into this. It made it much easier to enjoy the gameplay as the story is so simple. Modern games tend to not do this, and as anybody who's watched my other videos will know, I love deep lore and a lot of world building. But this game is a masterclass in telling a story with little to no words. I felt that there was enough story here that whilst I was playing through the game, I felt the drive to continue forward. And the small amount of story that I did find was appealing enough that after my playthrough I wanted to know more about the Metroid universe. But let's talk about the meat and potatoes, the thing that everybody loves about this game, and that's the gameplay. It's silly to say, as obviously a game that is so well loved by fans must have good gameplay, but the controls of Super Metroid are so comfortable and simple. The game gives you a handful of abilities and maneuvers to whet your appetite and get you used to the movement and combat. As the game goes on, you unlock special abilities and bonuses to your power suit. These change the controls up a little bit, as each new ability is added over the course of the game. It allows you to adapt quickly. It was nice not being given a million abilities to remember right from the get-go, and it really gave me the opportunity to learn and master each of them. Overall, the controls feel tight and impactful. When you charge up a cannon blast or fire off a super missile, it feels like a powerful weapon in your hands. There's a certain kickback about it, and it makes for fun and exciting combat. The game also gives you a few power-ups that help with maneuvering around the world a little easier. As you reach the end of the game, it's much appreciated, as if you're anything like me, you end up walking through the same areas a dozen times at least. Either way, Samus feels nice and reliable to control. If not for a few hiccups when using the grappling hook, I thought the controls were perfect. From what I understand, I didn't collect everything in the game, but for a first time playthrough and no guides on how to find hidden things, I think I did pretty well with what I found. Maybe you guys in the comments can tell me what your favourite power up is and if I found it or not. Let's talk about the map and each of the levels. I figured it would be best for me to break down my experience in this way so that you guys could see me as I play through each of the areas. You can mock me for my skills as much as you like. First off, we have Criteria. There's not a lot to say about this area. It felt like the smallest of the levels, but it is the first one. I like that I didn't feel as though the area was too easy. It set me up well for what was to come and prepared me for the worst, but it was simple enough that it allowed me to continue to adapt to the controls as I moved through the area. The blue shaded rocks on the entrance to the large underground system that makes up the majority of the game is a wonderful example of what can be done with a limited colour palette. I found that the simple backgrounds and environments made so that the very vibrant and incredibly well designed enemies stood out strong, making combat and my appreciation of the designs much easier to achieve. The small patch of moss here or there really made the world feel colourful. I feel that without these small textures, Criteria would certainly suffer from repetitive scenes, and although it's clearly not the best looking game that's ever been made, for the time and limitations of the console, it certainly hits the mark. Brinstar is the next location that I got to. My time here was interesting to say the least. The plain backgrounds and bold characters became a thing of the past in this area, and my eyes were assaulted with an ocean of green. The enemies, the background, the scenery, everything was green in one shade or another. This made seeing the enemies rather hard for me, and it did add a tad of frustration to the game a few times. But that being said, I think this was one of my favourite areas of the game. It felt fun to explore, like there was a hidden nook or cranny around every corner. It was a blast looking around this place and finding puzzles that I tried to complete a million times before realising that I probably needed a new item or something to be able to pass. And the Spore Spawn boss was so fun. It took me a while, as you can see here, to figure out what I was actually supposed to do, but once I figured it out and once I beat the boss, I felt so proud of myself. It's the sort of feeling you don't really get playing games these days. It was a simple and yet satisfying achievement. And the boss came out of nowhere. I was totally unprepared, and although I wasn't as skillful as some people who I've seen play the game, I think I did pretty well. Time to talk about Norfair. I hate in every game I have ever played the desert or lava level. I just hate those levels. They always suck, they're always a pain to play through, and they're boring to look at, and I'm sad to say that Super Metroid didn't change my opinion on this. The lava areas were annoying to fight through. I found myself getting items too early, and at one point I got completely stuck and had to figure out how to bomb jump just to get out. This is where I had to look at a guide. I know it was technically my fault for getting the speed boost early, but it was still super disheartening when I realised how stuck I was. Also, the design of the area is exactly as I expected it to be. As soon as I saw lava in the first part, I thought, this is going to be the whole way through, isn't it? And it was terrible. Though there were some good puzzles in this area, it was my least favourite overall, which is funny because I think some of the most fun power-ups in the game are found here. The boss fight with the Crocomire here was terrible. It was boring, I had no idea if I was even winning or what was happening, and when it fell into the lava I kind of felt just disappointed by the whole experience. It didn't feel like there was anything to work out or do. I just jumped and shot a bunch of times. A boss fight I did enjoy, however, was Kraid. Although I think technically he's in Brinstar, I'll include him here. He's really fun to fight. Unlike the Spore Spawn, I knew exactly what I had to do, but it was quite hard to do. This is one of the only bosses in the game that took me a few attempts to complete, and it turns out the best tactic was to jump in his mouth and spam rockets. Still, it was a fun fight and I had a little bit of a celebration afterwards. The wrecked ship was such a fun little area. It felt like the most puzzle revolvent level of the game, and I must have gotten lost 100 times on my way to Meridia, but it was so enjoyable to play my way through the wrecked ship. The area looked so unique compared to the rest of the game. The way they use damaged electrical wires as obstacles throughout the level is so clever. And the boss at the bottom of the ship, Fantoon, was an interesting fight, but at this point I was confident enough with the controls of the game that I found it quite easy, but still enjoyable. It felt easy because my skills had developed, and not because it was designed easy, and I really appreciated that. Next, we have to talk about Meridia. As I said before, I hate desert levels, and Meridia is the sandy underwater level of the game. It was a strange duality for me, as I usually love the underwater levels of games, and as I said before, hate the sand. And with Meridia, I found that when there was no sand involved, I enjoyed the level, and when there was sand involved, it was frustrating and tedious, so I found myself wishing it just wasn't there. The level itself wasn't my least favourite, but I didn't enjoy it all that much. In a sense it was great, because this was the level where I had to put everything I had learned together to manoeuvre the obstacles put in my way, though this area is where I had to refer to a guide for the second time. Botwin was the boss we fight here, and he was an absolute pushover. You just shoot his head a few times and you win easy. He didn't require any skill, and honestly didn't even feel like a boss fight. It was overall super disappointing, but the real boss of Meridia is Meridia itself. The maze-like dizzying routes you have to take had me banging my head against the table. I think I must have paused the game every 5 minutes to take a break before tackling it again, because it was just that confusing. Maybe it was because I tackled the rooms in an odd order, but my lord did I hate finding my way around this place. As soon as I got my hands on the screw attack, I felt myself avoiding combat at all costs. You see, when I started the game, I was worried about each fight that I had to have, and I felt that I needed to tackle everything nice and slow, but now I was confident enough with my abilities in the game that I could rush through the majority of areas. It was a nice personal skill curve that made me feel as though I actually got stronger in my preparation for what I thought was the final fight. It took a little exploration, but after a while I found Ridley. On the way there I found some weird statue of the bosses. I made a mental note of that and continued on my hunt for the arch nemesis. And when I found him, it was overall a great boss fight. It was hard, I had to dodge a lot, I had to use different weapons to get as much damage off as possible, and when I did it, my heart was racing and I was full of excitement. I would actually say this was one of my favourite boss fights of any platformer. It was just super fun, enjoyable and intense. With Ridley defeated, I decided to go see what that statue was about, and I was pleasantly surprised. I honestly thought that Ridley was the last boss, and that the game simply didn't end and would leave me to go around and collect all of the things I'd missed. I was a little disappointed at the idea of this ending, but then the mysterious statue collapsed and gave way to a completely new secret area, Torian. Torian is small, but what it lacks in size it makes up for in intensity. The whole level was quite scary as Metroids tried to eat my brain. The area looked amazing with a true sci-fi vibe, and I enjoyed my way through the whole thing. This is where you find the real last boss, Mother Brain. This is an interesting boss fight. I found it quite easy and I honestly think it could have been a little bit harder. But when you get the full hyper beam color laser thing, it's super fun. You feel so powerful and strong, and as you finish the boss fight you realise the tense atmosphere has more to throw at you. A timer comes on the screen and the planet is about to explode. I failed my first attempt escaping before the timer hit 0, so the second time I charged. Firing my new laser and dodging all I could, I clawed my way out of Torian and to the safety of my ship. Hopping aboard, I flew away, explosions following my trail, and it was all over. And what an ending. It was a blast, pun intended. The whole escape from the planet was an absolutely amazing way to end the game. It felt incredibly satisfying. All in all, Super Metroid is a classic for a reason. It's an overly enjoyable, difficult and hostile world full of opportunities to show off the skills you carefully obtain as you fight your way through a planet that is designed to perfection. The art, the music, and even the areas I didn't like so much were utterly wonderful. The game is a trip down nostalgia lane even if you've never played it. And I love this little end title telling you how much stuff you found in the world and welcoming you to have another go to get 100%. It adds a good replayability option, although I think I'll leave my experience here. I give Super Metroid a 9 out of 10. If you guys have any opinions on the game, or you have any requests of a game that you'd like me to play, please don't hesitate to drop it in the comments. Until next time, this is Tailor Measures, signing off. You guys have a good one.